to see this most clearly, you may want to click the full screen button on the upper right side of the window. This will maximize the shared screen. In order to submit a question, you will need to click the full screen button a second time to resume the normal window size. And for objectives of today's webinar, the purpose is to introduce HUD's environmental review online system and provide an opportunity for participants to test their knowledge and familiarity with the system. It is now time to turn over the presentation to Lauren Hayes.
Thanks, Ben, and thank you everyone for joining. Today we will go over some HEROS tools and resources, system updates and troubleshooting, including the assign review feature, partner user role, and screen updates, frequently asked questions by category, and finally an open forum for your questions. Before we get into the FAQs, I'll go over the tools and resources that are available on the HEROS page on the HUD Exchange website. First, we have a HEROS user guide that walks through every screen in HEROS. We're working on an update to incorporate new changes, but it's still a helpful resource if you have questions about completing a specific screen in the system. Next, we have a series of how-to videos. There are 19 5- to 10-minute videos that are topic-specific tutorials on how to use HEROS. This is a great resource if you want more information on specific parts of the environmental review process, such as starting a review or completing the request for release of funds. We also have newly updated videos posted to reflect the new system changes, so make sure to watch those if you have any questions. We also have a list of frequently asked questions by topic. If you have a HEROS question, this is a good first place to look. Chances are others have had the same question. We'll go over some of these later in the webinar. If you have any questions about tiered reviews in HEROS, make sure to watch the tiered review webinar. We won't go into much detail on tiering in this webinar, so the tiering webinar is a helpful resource to check out if you have questions about tiering. And finally, you can always submit a question to the Ask a Question or AAQ feature on the HUD Exchange. Just indicate that your question is related to environmental review and HEROS. Again, make sure to check the FAQs first, but if you can't find the answer or you're experiencing a potential glitch in the system, please let us know via AAQ so we can work on a fix. Now we'll go over some updates to the HEROS system that were rolled out this July. These new system updates include the assign review feature, the new partner user role, and improving the 701515 screen. We've also updated some of the individual HEROS screens, including sole source aquifers, housing requirements screen, mitigation measures, and the 701515 request release of funds and certification. We'll go over these in more detail, but first, here's a quick reminder on who can use HEROS for which HUD program. So for community planning and development, HEROS use is optional for responsible entities for CDBG, home, and shop. For COC, we recommend using specialized paper formats only instead of HEROS. HEROS is not yet available for state programs. And finally, HUD staff must use HEROS to process Part 58 reviews received in HEROS and all Part 50 reviews for CPD. For housing, RAD, FHA multifamily, and healthcare, HUD staff should now use HEROS. For public housing, HEROS use is mandatory for HUD staff for Part 50 reviews, and will roll out soon for Part 58. And then finally, we're doing a pilot for ONAP, the Office of Native American Programs, with rollout next year. The first big change to HEROS is the assign feature, which allows preparers to assign environmental reviews to other users to edit or certify. Before, anyone with edit privileges to review can edit it at any time, and now only the assigned user can edit a review. This is important because it helps improve security and prevent errors which could occur from multiple people working on one review at the same time. And it also tracks the path of the review from start to finish and keeps a record of everyone who's edited the environmental review. What this means for users is that when you start a review, you're automatically the assigned user. And before anyone else can work on or edit or certify your review, you must assign it to them. Then after you assign the review, you will not be able to edit it again until it's assigned back to you. For HUD staff, this allows you to track the 7015-15, 7015-16 approval because the system records the official submission of the 7015-15 via the assign feature, and I'll show what this looks like shortly. As part of the assign feature, the dashboard is now divided into two separate dashboards. The default when you log in is the Show Reviews Assigned to Me dashboard, which only shows those reviews where you're the current assigned user and can edit. The Show All dashboard displays reviews that you're permitted to view based on user privileges, and you can toggle between these using those radio buttons at the top of the screen. At the bottom of the screen, you now have an option to view assignment history, which shows a record of everyone who has been previously assigned the review and may have edited the review, as well as an Assign Review button to assign the review to a new user. You can also assign the review from any screen in that review using the new Assign button on the side menu. If you click on the Assign Review button, you're directed to the Assign screen, which looks like this. It looks a little overwhelming, but I'll walk through it. First, you can search for the user you'd like to assign the environmental review to in the top two text boxes. The search results are shown in the first chart, where you can see the user name, user role, and contact information. Confirm that you're assigning the review to someone with the correct user role. So, for instance, if you're an RE assigning the review to HUD, make sure that user role says HUD. Then you'll click on the assignee, so it's highlighted in gray, like this. The second chart displays the assignment history that I mentioned before and everyone who's already been assigned the review. Next, if you are submitting the review as part of the official submission of the 7015-15, make sure to check this checkbox so it records that submission. Finally, you have an option to add any comments, and this is also recorded as part of the assignment history. And you would click the Assign button at the bottom of the screen. After assigning a review, both the assignee and the assigner will receive a system-generated email. We recommend that you follow up outside the system before assigning the review to make sure that the assignee is not out of the office and they're able to confirm the receipt and certify the review. Again, this is especially important as part of the 7015-15, 7015-16 process. To make sure that HUD is available to certify the review. The only people who can change an assignment are the current assigned user and users with admin privileges, or we've also called them the HUROS local administrator. So if you assign a review accidentally or assign it and need it back to make more changes, you must work with either the admin user or the current assigned user to get it back. Next, Liz Zepeda will go over the partner user role.
Thank you, Lauren. So one major benefit of the assign feature is that it allows us to finalize the partner user role. So before, we had security concerns about allowing outside partner users to access HEROS directly, but now we feel a lot more confident that we have the right infrastructure in place to roll HEROS out to all the necessary users. So as you know, right now, we only allow HUD and RE, or responsible entity staff, to use HEROS with some very limited exceptions for what we're calling in-house consultants. But with the partner user rollout, that's going to enable us to let all kinds of partners, including public housing authorities, consultants, contractors, nonprofits, applicants, lenders, and other non-responsible entity recipients to access HEROS directly and make things a lot easier for HUD and RE staff. Once we roll out this new user role, you HUD and responsible entity users will be able to work directly with your partners in HEROS. So instead of them preparing documents and analysis and sending all of that to you by email or Dropbox or SharePoint or whatever you use, they'll be able to log directly into HEROS, work with you directly onto your environmental reviews, and save a lot of work and back and forth on all sides. So you will be able to assign reviews back and forth with your outside partners the same way you do now with HUD and responsible entity users. So you'll be able to trade or share reviews, share documents within reviews, etc. We're not going to go into the mechanics or the details of how that is all going to work today because we aren't quite ready to go yet. But there will be comprehensive training for partner users and the HUD and responsible entity staff who work with them as part of a larger rollout coming soon. So for now, we're just going to take a quick look at some of the key features. So we put a couple security measures in place to help ensure that HUD and responsible entity users are taking responsibility for finalizing their environmental reviews. Partners should be doing a lot of the initial legwork of preparing documents and the initial analysis on environmental reviews, but only HUD for Part 50 reviews and responsible entity users for Part 58 reviews should be taking legal responsibility for completing the analysis and making determinations. So to help ensure that that's happening, only HUD or responsible entity users will be able to respond to the final question on each of the law and authority screens. So each of the related law and authority screens ends with the same question: are formal compliance steps or mitigation required? And while partner users will be able to answer every other question on this screen, as well as upload documents, there's a lock on their user role, so they cannot answer that screen. So that means that HUD or the responsible entity is going to have to go through, click through each screen and answer that question as HUD or the responsible entity to make sure that you're independently evaluating your partner's work and checking each screen yourself. And when I say HUD or responsible entity, I mean HUD for Part 50 reviews and responsible entities for Part 58 reviews. HUD would not be able to answer this question for Part 58 reviews. So another security measure is that partner users will not be able to access the final screens, including the findings, determinations, certification, 7015-15 and 7015-16, and the complete and archive screens. So any screen where the screen number starts with 6, the 6000 series, partner users basically don't have access to that chunk of screens. The one exception is that some partner users will be able to access the 7015-15 request for release of funds screen. If the partner is a recipient of HUD funds, then they'll get special privileges to sign off on Part 3 of the 7015-15 request for release of funds. But otherwise, once the analysis portion of the review is complete, partner users will be instructed to assign the review to HUD or responsible entity so that you can finalize it. And this is the screen that they'll see. So they'll be able to generate a preview of the environmental review record, make sure that everything looks to be in order, and then they'll just pass it off to you, assign it to you. So there's a lot more to come on the partner user role. We're pilot testing right now, so our schedule is going to depend a bit on how that goes. We can't be exactly sure. Hopefully it goes well, but we intend to start rolling out the partner user role in the next few months. So stay tuned. There's a lot more training and information to come on this. We should be keeping the HEROS homepage updated with the most current information on the status of the rollout and the user roles. We know we haven't necessarily been perfect with that in the past, but we plan to step up our game and keep that updated. So you should have the most current information on the HEROS page on the HUD Exchange. So those are the two biggest changes, probably, the assign feature and the partner user role. But now we're going to go through a few of the improvements we've made to the individual screens based on your feedback. We've been able to make a lot of small changes and improvements to HEROS this year. Some of the more interesting ones are to the sole source aquifer, housing requirements, mitigation measures, and 7015-15 screens. So first, sole source aquifers. This is a change we think is going to be good news for just about all of you. We switched the first two questions about sole source aquifers so that if your project only involves refinance, acquisition, leasing, or rehab of an existing building, you don't need to upload a sole source aquifer map. It's a small change, but we hope that you're going to have some real time savings, as you'll no longer need to identify whether a project is in a sole source aquifer unless it actually matters for the project. So this shows how the screen looks now. Instead of first asking whether you're in a sole source aquifer, it now first asks what the activities are involved in the project. So if there's nothing that could impact an aquifer, then there's no need to check or upload a map. There are also some very big changes to the housing requirement screen, which you'll only see when you're working on a Part 50 review for a housing division program, such as multifamily production, healthcare, or RAD. So if that's the case for an environmental review you're working on, you'll see a link to that screen on the Related Laws and Authorities summary between Wild and Scenic Rivers and environmental justice. The biggest change is that there's a lot more guidance similar to the other Related Law and Authority screens. So instead of just the text boxes you had before, you'll see more detailed questions with more guidance. It's still not quite as detailed as some of the other screens, as the housing requirement screen is based on program requirements that could differ from each other or change in the future. But we think that this new screen will make the lead-based paint, radon, and asbestos requirements clearer and easier for housing reviews. One important note here is that when this change first went into effect in July, there was a bug affecting the asbestos section of the screen, and we told some of you to leave all of those questions blank. That bug has been resolved now, so you should now be able to complete the entire screen. So repeat, please complete all questions on this screen, including the asbestos section, because as far as we know, there are no bugs remaining on the housing requirement screen. It should all be working now. And now I'm going to pass it over to Lauren McNamara.
Great, thank you, Liz. So an additional screen change that we made is the adding mitigation measures on screen 5000. So on the mitigation measures and conditions screen, you can now add mitigation for a project in areas that are not identified in the laws and authorities or in the environmental assessment factors. For example, under Part 58 review, you can add mitigation for radon if radon has been identified as an issue for a project and needs to be mitigated. To do so, you can click the Add Mitigation Measure or Condition Factor button, and a new row will appear under the mitigation chart. You can add a title for the factor here and describe the mitigation measure that needs to be taken. The added mitigation measure will appear in the environmental review record that is generated from HUROS, and it will also pull this information into the mitigation follow-up screen. The mitigation follow-up screen is accessible after the review is marked complete, and here's where you document that the mitigation measure or condition has been met. Another big change we made to screens is the 70-15-15 request for release of funds and certification screen. The request for release of funds and certification screen can be completed in two ways. The first way, which is the most common, is an uploaded signed 70-15-15 can be uploaded onto HUROS and the dates can be selected on the screen. Or the less kind of popular method is the certifying officer can certify Part 2 of the 70-15-15 within the system. And once we roll out to partners, partners will be able to certify Part 3 of the 70-15-15 within the system. We do have a video that walks through exactly how this works, both options on our how-to video page on the HUD Exchange, and we have a link here. So I'm going to walk through a summary of the option where the certifying officer signs a paper 70-15-15, and the HUROS preparer uploads this paper document within the system. So no matter how a user is completing a 70-15-15, public notifications need to be uploaded at the very top of the screen, as you can see from the top arrow. When uploading a signed 70-15-15, you will need to select the dates that the certifying officer signs the 70-15-15. This is the first date box. And then if anyone was participating as a non-RE recipient and signed Part 3, you would enter the date that they signed it on the screen as well using the calendar selection box. Be sure to select Save and Continue on this screen before assigning this review to HUD. And one note, do not mark your review complete until HUD returns the 70-15-16 authority to use grant funds for the project. So once the 70-15-15 screen is complete, either by uploading the completed 70-15-15 and selecting the dates, or the certifying officer certifies the review in the system, the review needs to be assigned to HUD to submit the 7015-15 to HUD. As we covered before in an assign review screen discussion, you can access the screen using the side menu, and you can search for your HUD contact. So you can enter your HUD contact's last name, make sure that their role is HUD, and then when you are selecting them, select the checkbox right above the text box to select that you're submitting the 7015-15. This helps us track when the 7015-15 is submitted to HUD. We have reporting functionality on this to help field offices be aware of when the 7015-15 has been submitted. And then you would add information into the text box, such as I am submitting a request for release of funds. One thing to note here is outside of the system, you should contact your HUD contact to make sure that they are in the office and that they know that the request for release of funds is coming their way. And when you're done, be sure to select Assign. You will both receive email notifications from the system, and when the HUD objection period has elapsed, HUD will assign a review to the last responsible entity user who it was assigned to, and they will receive an email message letting them know that the review is being assigned to them. And now I'm going to turn it over to Liz to open it up to our interactive FAQ by category section.
All right, thanks. So now we're going to do some interactive Q&A to test your knowledge and wake you up and give you something to do. So as we go through each of these questions, please select what you think is the right answer, and then we'll go through them together. Meanwhile, don't forget to enter any questions you have in the Q&A pod so that we can answer those at the end of the webinar. Doesn't look like we're going to have a ton of time to get through all of those, so the sooner you get them in, the more likely it is going to be in our queue, and I will get to it. So first question, who do I contact for a password reset? Is it email HEROS info, submit an AAQ, ask a question, email the HEROS team, or contact the HITS National Help Desk? Select one on this poll. We'll give you a minute. All right, maybe close that out. All right, and most of you got this one right. We know that the answer to this has changed over the years, but hopefully this is the final answer. Whether you need to reset your password in production or in training, please call the HITS National Help Desk for assistance. You'll need to have your 5-digit PIN that you gave us when you registered for HEROS, so make sure you have that handy. One thing is that sometimes getting your password reset doesn't solve the problem, usually because there's actually another reason you couldn't log in. And if you get a reset, you still can't log in, then go to ask a question, and we'll be able to step in and figure out what's going wrong. But the HEROS team cannot reset passwords. So we need to be kind of the second step. You're not going to be able to get anywhere by contacting us for help with a password reset because we can't do it. Remember to write down your passwords somewhere because resetting them is a crazy nightmare. So be careful, don't forget your password. We don't know why it's so hard, but please just try to be prepared and don't forget it. All right, next question. The next question is, what's the first thing you should do if you're using HEROS and something doesn't work? So you contact your field environmental officer, submit a question to ask a question, check the HEROS frequently asked questions, or email HEROS info. All right, see how that's going. All right, and great job on this one. Yes, the first thing you should do is check the HEROS frequently asked questions because that's going to be the fastest way to resolve your issue in a lot of cases. Don't forget to check the troubleshooting section, which if you're having a problem might be a great place to find the answer. If you don't find an answer on the FAQs, then submit a question through Ask a Question on the HUD Exchange, and we'll prepare an answer for you. notice a theme here that the answer is really never email HEROS info. That's not a great resource for anything except for a very specific set of situations. So don't email HEROS info in general. All right, next question is true or false. Typing text into HEROS counts as being active and will prevent you from timing out. All right. See how everyone's doing on that? Ooh, all right, that was close. We want to keep this one fresh in your mind because one of the best ways to have your day completely ruined by HEROS is to type in a lot of text on a screen, only to get timed out and to lose all of it. And yeah, it's horrible. So as you hopefully recall, HUD's IT security protocols dictate that HEROS users must be logged out after 20 minutes of inactivity. Inactivity does include typing. You get a 3-minute warning after 17 minutes, at which time you should definitely save your work. But we've gotten reports that people who didn't get that warning were still timed out. So be vigilant. And a lot of actions will count as activity, and they'll kind of continuously reset that 20-minute clock, but typing is not one of them. So when you're typing in a lot of text, make sure you're saving your work constantly. So it's really important on text-heavy screens like the environmental assessment factors. And one thing we did on a recent update is to add more save buttons on that screen, and as well as some other screens to help you avoid problems with timing out. But to be safe, it's also a good idea to type in these longer blocks of text somewhere else, like in a Word document, and then copy and paste it into HEROS. But make sure you're saving and not relying on HEROS noticing that you're typing. All right, one more from me. All right, I'm looking for a project on the My Environmental Review dashboard, and I can't find it. Where is it? Why can't I find it? Option 1 is it's assigned to another user, but your dashboard is only showing my assigned reviews. B, or next choice, is it's tiered. Next choice is you've entered a search criteria that filtered your results, or any of the above. Kind of a lot to read on this one. I just noticed that I can see them while we're processing this. But yeah, it looks like you figured this one out. It is a lot of possibilities here. This is a really commonly asked question. People can't find a review, and there's a lot of reasons that could be. Probably the most common is that the review is assigned to a different assigned user, but you can only see reviews assigned to you because of just your view in the dashboard. By default, when you log in, you're only going to see the reviews that are assigned to you. But if you need to see a review that's assigned to someone else, you just need to toggle to the Show All Review view on the dashboard. So kind of towards the top of the screen on the dashboard, press the radio button that says Show All, as opposed to Show Reviews Assigned to Me, and then you'll be able to find it. Another possibility is that the review you're looking for is a tiered review. Those are on a separate dashboard. So if you are looking for a tiered review, you need to press the Go to Tiered Reviews button, and you'll be taken to the Tiered Reviews dashboard. And finally, you may have limited the reviews you're seeing by filtering your results. You can filter most of the columns on the dashboard to search just for a specific key term or key terms. So make sure you aren't filtering by something that you don't want to filter by if you want to get all the results. So that's it for me. I'll turn it back to Lauren Neckmack.
Okay, so our next question is, which of the following is considered a partner user role and will soon have access to HEROS? So who can be a partner in HEROS? Public housing authorities, nonprofits, consultants, or all of the above? All right. Okay, it looks like most of you got this one correct. The answer is D, all of the above. So we did have a release to HEROS back in July of 2017 that incorporates this new functionality for the partner user role. We are currently running a few small pilots on this user role to make sure everything is in order before we open it to the kind of broader audience. But partner users can be public housing authorities, they could be nonprofits, they could be TBHEs, consultants, contractors, lenders, nonprofits, and any other non-RE recipients. We are currently working on a timeline for the rollout to partner users, and we'll probably be doing this by HUD program. We anticipate after we wrap up these pilots that this will start sometime in early 2018. And we will be letting everyone know when this will be happening by reaching out through your HUD program offices, and we'll also be keeping the HEROS homepage on the HUD Exchange up to date with where we are on our rollout for the partner user role. All right, next question. Is the certifying officer required to have access to HEROS? Yes or no? Okay, so it looks like this is kind of a close answer, but just to reiterate, it is not required that the certifying officer has access to HEROS. The certifying officer can have access to HEROS. They can certify or review within the system, but they are allowed to sign a paper 7015-15, and a HEROS user can upload that into HEROS. So it's not required. There are two ways that the 7015-15 can be completed in the system, either with the certifying officer outside of the system or the certifying officer having access to the system. We know that there are some smaller communities where the certifying officer does have access to the system, but we understand that for larger responsible entities, it might not be an option for a certifying officer to sit down and log into HEROS to certify something. So we have the option where it can be done either way. It's not required that they have access. The more popular option is that they sign the paper 7015-15 outside of the system. All right, next question. I was assigned a review to sign, but HEROS won't allow me to certify it. How do I fix this? A, check your privileges. B, make sure you're in edit mode. C, complete the certification on paper and upload it. Or D, A or B. All right, so it looks like a majority of you got this correct. So the answer is D, A or B. So you can check your privileges under the admin tab in the system from the dashboard. If you're a HUD staff person, make sure that you have the correct state associated with your profile. If you're an RE, only the certifying officer can have the privilege to sign the 7015-15 within the system. So check with your field environmental officer if you are a certifying officer and you need to have that privilege. And keep in mind that your certifying officer can also sign this on paper and a HEROS user can upload it. Another issue that people kind of run into is they're in view mode. They're not in edit mode. So from the HEROS dashboard, you can access a review in edit mode or view mode. If you can't, if you're unable to select something, just return back to the dashboard and try opening the review again and make sure you're doing it in edit mode. And if these options don't work, if your privileges look all right and you're in edit mode and there's still an issue, just contact AAQ for assistance and we can try and pinpoint what the issue might be. All right, next question. How are the laws and authorities added to the mitigation screen? A, the laws and authorities that appear on this screen are based on responses to your question within each law and authority screen. B is based on your response to the question, are formal compliance steps or mitigation required in the screen summary for each related law and authority. C, you can add new mitigation factors directly on the mitigation screen. And finally, D, A and C, but not B. It's a little confusing. Okay, so it looks like most of you got this correct. So the correct answer is D, A and C, but not B. So mitigation measures for the laws and authorities show on the screen based on your responses within the screen. When you're prompted to provide information on a mitigation measure, this means that you've completed the screen for far long enough for the mitigation measure to be recorded. The mitigation measure is not tied to your response to the final yes/no question at the bottom of each screen summary. And as I mentioned before, you can now add new mitigation factors directly on the mitigation screen. So if something isn't captured in a specific law and authority, you can add it directly to the mitigation screen. But definitely note that if you're working through floodplains or something similar and you know that there's mitigation for floodplains and it's not appearing on a mitigation screen, go back to the floodplain screen and make sure you're prompted throughout the screen to the point where you are asked to provide a mitigation summary. Yes, and the answer is D. All right, now troubleshooting.
Okay, so a quick troubleshooting question. The written strategy for my tiered review is blank in the electronic environmental review record. What do I do? Leave it alone, this will be fixed later. Upload the written strategy as a Word document, or submit a request for assistance through Ask a Question. Okay, looks like the majority got this correct. The answer is B, upload the written strategy as a Word document. This issue is a known error for tiered reviews and will be fixed in fall of 2017, so very soon. But for now, you can upload the written strategy as a Word document in the tiered review. There's no need to use AAQ. We're aware of the issue. It's a bug, but it will be fixed very soon. So the next final questions are on completing reviews. When is your 7015-15 submitted to HUD? Immediately after clicking the upload button to attach the 7015-15 paper version, after sending an email to your HUD representative outside of HEROS, or after assigning the review to your HUD rep and selecting the checkbox indicating that the assignment represents the submission of the 7015-15. Okay, the majority of you were correct. The answer is C, after assigning the review to your HUD representative and also selecting the checkbox indicating that you're submitting the 7015-15. Selecting this checkbox on the assign screen is the only way that that submission of the 7015-15 is recorded, and that's retained in the assignment history in the environmental review record. There is no recording of the submission when you upload it to the 7015-15 screen. It is great to send an email to your HUD rep that you are assigning the review and submitting the 7015-15, but you must also assign the review to them and check the checkbox for the official submission to be recorded. Okay, next question. The 15-day HUD objection period is over, but I have not received the authority to use grant funds. Should I resubmit the request for release of funds to HUD, mark the review complete, or follow up with my HUD contact via phone or email about the status of the authority to use grant funds 7015-16? This question might have been easy. Almost everyone got it correct. The answer is C, follow up with your HUD contact to ask about the status. We recommend doing this regardless when you're assigning a review, just to make sure that the assignee is available. But definitely don't mark the review complete until you have received the authority to use grant funds. And resubmitting the 7015-15 will not help if it's an issue on HUD's end. So definitely make sure to follow up with the HUD contact if you experience this issue. One final FAQ question. How long is my non-tiered environmental review record archived on the HUD Exchange? 10 years, 1 year, 6 months, or 5 years? All right, this one might have been a little tricky. The answer is B, 1 year, for non-tiered environmental reviews. So sorry if that was a tricky question. For tiered environmental reviews, those are archived on the HUD Exchange for 5 years. So now we will open it up to questions from participants. If you have not submitted a question to the question pod that you have, feel free to submit it. No guarantees that we'll have time to get through all of them, but we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible.
All right, thanks. Our first question is the perennial first question. When will HEROS become mandatory?
Okay, so HEROS is currently mandatory for HUD staff who complete Part 50 reviews for CPD, housing, or PIH programs. For Part 58 reviews, HEROS is optional. Right now, it is open for CPD reviews, these types of reviews that are SHOP, home, or CDBG, and we will be rolling out later on, early 2018, for PIH Part 58 reviews, and we're currently piloting with ONEM. So it's mandatory for most HUD staff, and it's voluntary for non-HUD staff who are entitlement responsible.
Okay, next question is, how will I know when my review is approved by HUD?
Hey, Lauren, this is TJ. Do you mind repeating your answer to the last question? Your volume went really low for the majority of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat the answer to the last question because I guess I got disconnected. So HEROS is mandatory for HUD staff for CPD, housing, and PIH who complete reviews under Part 50. Under Part 58, reviews that are completed by responsible entities for programs such as SHOP, home, CDBG, HEROS is optional at this time. We anticipate that we will be making HEROS mandatory in early 2019, but you have heard us say a date before and it has been pushed back. So we will let you know when it will definitely become mandatory, but right now we need to roll it out to a few more programs, a few more user roles, so we anticipate most likely 2019. And the next question was, when is the 7015, when is the authority to use grant funds submitted back to the RE? How do they know that they've received it? So you will receive an email notification letting you know that the review has been reassigned to you. And when you log into the system and you click on a review, the 7015-16 screen, which is immediately after the 7015-15 screen, you can access this on a side menu. You will be able to see that that screen is complete and there is a date entered into the date that the approving official approved the review. This date will also show up in your generated environmental review record, letting you know that that is the date that the authority to use grant funds has been submitted back to the RE from HUD. So they have approved the use of funds. Next question.
All right, next question is kind of related to that. Does HUD review my environmental review record prior to approving the authority to use grant funds?
No, HUD does not review the environmental review record. And when HUD receives a submission of the 7015-15, they can only edit the 7015-16 in HEROS and cannot make any changes to your review.
All right, thank you. Next one we got a lot after one of my slides. Can we have the HITS help desk number? Good question. I looked that up for you. Sorry, so get a pen. It's 888-297-8689. You can also Google HUD HITS help desk and it will come up, but it is 888-297-8689. Now I sound like a horrible radio ad and they're laughing at me. We also got another encouraging comment on that, which was, I don't think it's hard to get passwords reset anymore because I've been locked out twice and I was able to get a new one in minutes. So great news. It might not be as terrible as it used to be, but be careful with those passwords. So hopefully it's improving. I know we had some trouble with the help desk in the past, but possible good news ahead. All right, next question. When I read over the procedures for submitting an environmental review, I understood that my supervisor would always be able to view and access the environmental reviews I'm submitting. However, in practice, she can only view my reviews if I assign them to her to review. Is that correct, or is that an error?
So there are two ways your supervisor can review your review. You can assign the review to her to review, or if she's logged into HEROS, if she selects the button Show All Reviews, she'll be able to view your review and not be able to edit it. So you can assign it to her for a formal review, or she can click Show All Reviews and she'll be able to see all the reviews that are being worked on within your responsible entity, and she'll be able to view it that way.
All right. Next question, is it possible to completely restart a screen in the related laws and authorities section? For example, can I completely restart the historic preservation question because I selected the wrong finding at the end?
Yes, you should be able to restart a law and authority screen. You would just have to make sure to go to the very first question to restart it, because the questions are kind of auto-populated and dynamic based on your answer. So just make sure to go to the first question on the screen to start over, and you should be able to answer all the questions again.
Yeah, that should work. There's no way to clear out a screen completely. If you do have any trouble with that, I would suggest submitting a question to ask a question. But that should work in most cases. I think historic preservation might be a little trickier than some of the others. All right, the next question is about HEROS admin users, those people who have the privileges to assign reviews. Is there a list of who the admins are in each area, or would we need to contact our field officer to get this information?
So the HEROS local administrator or admin user was assigned when users registered for access. We recommended that each RE had 1 to 2 people who had this position or this privilege in the system. If you are unsure if your responsible entity has someone who is an admin user, you can follow up with AAQ and we can check to let you know who your admin user is within your responsible entity. We have all of this information in our records, but there isn't a way to check in the system to see who is the HEROS local administrator. If you are a HEROS user and you would like to be a HEROS local administrator, you can contact your field environmental officer and we can update your user privileges.
All right, thank you. If you need a password reset, but you've lost your 5-digit PIN, is there a way of getting that back or resetting your 5-digit PIN?
Yes, that's a good question. If you have forgotten your PIN, please submit and ask a question, because we also have that information in our records and we can let you know what the PIN is to provide when you call the help desk.
Thank you. What do I do if I need to change the assignments or the roles within my responsible entity? We had some staff changes and we need to update people's privileges and roles.
All right, so you can contact your field environmental officer and let them know of any changes. If anyone has left the RE, you can let us know and we can deactivate their profile. If you have someone who needs to be a certifying officer or needs to have the HEROS local administrator privilege, we can also make that change on our end, but you have to submit this request through your field environmental officer. We'll process it and we'll let you know when your privileges have been updated.
Thank you. If I've already received the traditional paper form 7015-16 from HUD, should I also complete that process in HEROS?
Okay, so if you submitted an electronic like 7015-15 to HUD through HEROS and they sent you back the paper 7015-16, they should be doing it electronically, but there might have been some issues in the past where they were sending it back on paper. So if you have a paper 7015-16, but you have an electronic 7015-15 in HEROS, you can upload the 7015-16 to your 7015-15 screen at the top where you would upload the public notifications, just so everything is included in your environmental review record. But if you are submitting your 7015-15 to HUD electronically, they should be returning it to you in the 7015-16 within HEROS. If you're doing an environmental review in HEROS, you know, go from A to Z, complete the environmental review process, and then complete the 7015-15 in the system. In the past, some REs were completing it up to the 7015-15 and mailing the 7015-15 in. You know, this is a time of transition, so please make sure you have all those files. But if you are starting a review in HEROS, you should be submitting your 7015-15 electronically to HUD.
Thank you. All right, we only have 3 minutes left, and we have many, many questions left, so we'll get through as many as we possibly can. Next one is, if you contact your field environmental officer or HUD contact outside of HEROS and they're not in the office, should you still assign the review to them?
No, you should not still assign the review to them. A lot of times environmental reviews are time sensitive, so you want to make sure that you can assign it to someone who is available to certify the review. I would suggest you follow up with other HUD contacts to find someone who can certify the review on their behalf, or yeah, you'd have to find a backup, but don't assign a review to someone who's out of the office. But it is always good to check, so make sure you do that beforehand so you can catch it before.
What do you do if you've uploaded supporting documents but they can't be opened in the system?
That's a good question. So first, check if the file name has any special characters in it. This causes issues in HEROS and does not allow you to open the uploads, especially from the environmental review record. So definitely check first, and if you don't have any, and that includes periods, dashes, things that might not normally be considered special characters. So definitely avoid those in the file names. And then if that is not the case, then submit a question to AAQ and we can look into it closer.
All right, I'm going to take one more question that is a tiering question. So I'm going to take it myself, and then I'll turn it back over to Ben to wrap up the webinar. This question is, I haven't submitted any tier 2s in HEROS yet. Just want to confirm that they're just uploading the paper tier 2 and no other submission. And that is correct. When you're doing a tiered review, you'll do all of your submissions, your request for release of funds, and approvals at the broad level or tier 1 level. And then at the site-specific or tier 2 level, it's really just uploading a form that you completed outside of HEROS at this point. So down the line, that might be something more involved, but at this point, you'll just be uploading your tier 2 documentation into HEROS once it's all complete, and that's all you have to do. So Ben, close things down.
Thank you very much to Lauren, and Liz for today's presentation and answers. And thank you all for joining us for this webinar. As a reminder, an email will be sent to all who attended today's session, and it would be sent following this webinar with instructions for getting credit for your participation and requests to complete the feedback survey, which will be delivered through SurveyMonkey. We will also be sending a follow-up email next week with the PowerPoint slides and a recording of today's webinar session. Thank you again, and please enjoy the rest of your day.